Alright, y'all, it's finally time to talk about the best books I read in 2024. This is one of my favorite videos to film every single year because I basically just get to gush about all my favorites. So, on the screen, starting very soon, I'm going to be showing slides of the books, the honorable mentions, the books that I gave like 4.5 out of 5 stars, the ones that I really loved, but just there was something just slightly not 100% perfect about them. And so I'm, showing you those on the screen now in all sorts of different genres. But the books that I'm going to be highlighting in this video are the books that I gave full 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I no ifs, ands, or buts. These are top tier books for me. I'm just going to be going in order from chronologically, like the books I read in January on to December in that order, because it's so hard for me to pick, like, to rank these books against each other because they're so different. The first book that I gave 5 stars to in 2024 was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This is a contemporary romance. This is a pregnancy romance following Wynn and Beau, who have a one-night stand, and a pregnancy ensues, and this is them falling in love throughout the course of the pregnancy. I love this book so deeply for the love element, the romance that these two have for each other, but the fact that the disability representation in this book is top-notch. Both Wynn has a hand difference. She was born with like a different hand, and then Beau has a limb loss, and so he has a prosthetic. And I just love disabled love, and the way that it was executed in here was truly excellent and made me love the pregnancy trope and the, one night stand surprise pregnancy. Honestly, I was a little in love with Beau by the end of this book too, to be honest. Then I read Paladin's Faith by T. Kingfisher. This is the 4th book in the Saints of Steel series. The first book is Paladin's Grace, and this is a series of fantasy romances following these different paladins whose god has died, and so they are very bereft and sad and broken, and this is about them finding new life and new love. And this particular installment is following Marguerite, who's one of my favorite characters, and Shane, I believe. And Shane, and basically Marguerite is a spy, and so she is on a mission, and Shane is sent to protect her. And I loved the espionage in this book. That whole plot line was fabulous, and the romance on top of that was sweet and steamy. And so I deeply love this series and think this is one of the best installments. I love Paladin's Grace probably the most, and then this is my second favorite of the whole series. This year I read the entirety of the Sweat and Soap romance manga, and the 3rd installment of this series is the best in my opinion, and I gave this one 5 stars. The rest of the series is between like a 4 and a 5, but this is one of the better installments in my opinion. This is a romance manga about this main character who sweats a lot, and she's really self-conscious about it, and a guy who is obsessed with her scent, and he develops perfume and soap scents for a living. And so this is a match made in heaven. And the first one, honestly, is a little weird because he like smells her a lot. But if you can get past it, This blossoms into a really sweet and tender romance. The next 5 stars is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chachki. We'll say it that way. This is a gothic sort of fairy tale retelling where it's a little bit like a Bluebeard retelling with a twist. This is following the bridegroom, who is never named. Love that. And he marries a woman named Indigo, I believe. Yeah, Indigo. He marries a woman named Indigo, and her one stipulation is never ask about my past, and we're all good. And so he does, or he respects her wishes until her past comes back to haunt them. And discoveries are made, obviously. This is also a secondary timeline. Following the other perspective is one of Indigo's friends growing up. And so we're kind of in the past seeing how Indigo grew up from this friend's perspective, and then we're seeing the present timeline with the bridegroom kind of uncovering the past, and then how those two narratives are kind of woven together. This was excellent and atmospheric. The writing was impeccable, and I loved it so much. This is a work that doesn't work for everybody, but it certainly worked for me. I was obsessed with this story. One of the shortest things I read this year is also one of the best fantasy stories I've ever read. Truly remarkable. It goes to The Lives of the Ajungo by Moses Osi Utomi. This is a tiny little, seemingly straightforward story about a boy who wants to save his people from dying of thirst, dehydration in the desert. So he goes off to go find water, but this blooms and blossoms into an epic story of discovery and heroism and the meaning of life, the meaning of power, the systems of oppression. There's so much wrapped up into this tiny little novella, and I was absolutely obsessed with this. This is one of the best things I read all year, and it's the shortest, by far, one of the shortest reads I've read. I can't recommend this highly enough. I really love this one. My absolute favorite contemporary romance of the year is a book that is published by St. Martin's Press, and I was made aware recently that we are still boycotting St. Martin Press publicly reviewing those works. So I won't be talking about that final book or that SMP title in this video, but know that I really enjoyed this trans love contemporary romance. If you know, you know. If you don't, I can mention it in the comments down below. Next, we have A Man and His Cat. I gave both volumes 7 and 8 5 stars. This is a cozy, I guess, literary fiction manga series about a man adopting a cat as a kind of a way to cope with the passing of his wife, and he was a former professional piano player. And this is about the man hanging out with his cat and kind of making new friends and overcoming grief and like a grief story. And there's so much in here, and the cat gets a perspective, and he's very silly and cute. And I just enjoy this series so much. So I will be continuing to read it, and I read 7 and 8, and they were both fantastic. I really adore this series. Then we have The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton, which I personally loved. This is a sci-fi murder mystery about the remnants of humanity living on a tiny island, and the rest of the world is covered in this deadly fog. And so at the start of the story, it says like there's 3 days before the end of the world and a murder occurs. And so they have 3 days before the fog encroaches completely on the island, and they have to figure out how to, one, stop the fog, and who committed the murder. This has a really interesting perspective. The narrator is essentially a AI type implanted being that's in everybody's heads, and so we get to see inside many and all of the characters' perspectives. which I just thought was a really interesting narrative device. And I think the way that that narrative device was used to like conceal information from the reader and reveal information to the reader about the murder mystery, I thought was really clever. And I had a great time. I was surprised. I really enjoyed this and its execution personally. Then we have the Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This is the start of the Winnowing Flame trilogy. We're following 3 characters. One is an archaeologist, one is a kind of a vampire mercenary kind of guy, and the third is a witch as they team up to save the world. That's putting it very, very simply, but this is one of the most unique fantasy stories, science fiction, fantasy blend stories I've ever read. It's so quirky and strange, and I definitely think it's worth the pickup. I really loved this first installment. I thought it was the best of this trilogy, and I just am kind of obsessed with it, and I keep, it's one of those that like has stuck with me, one of the most, and I just keep thinking about these characters and this world over and over again throughout the rest of the year. Speaking of books and series I can't get out of my head, The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan was one of my favorite reads of 2024. This is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf trilogy, which I also completed in 2024, and this is about Sir Conrad von Volt, who is judge, jury, executioner all in one, and he is traveling around the Empire dispensing the Emperor's justice on his own, with a ragtag group of folks, and this is actually told from the perspective of his clerk, Helena. And so I love the way that this story is told. I love the horror, grotesque elements of this. I love how political the story is. I think the mystery at the heart of the story is really interesting and it's kind of a detective story set in a fantasy world, which is excellent and really fun. And overall, I just thought this was a great book, and I continued to love the rest of the series, and I pre-ordered Richard Swan's 2025 release. I have a review up for the whole trilogy if you are interested in seeing that. Then we have The Fury of the Gods by John Quinn, which is the 3rd book in the Bloodsworn saga trilogy. This final installment I was really impressed by. I truly love where this series went, and this final installment really worked for me. He's been doing so much build up to this final moment, and the way that he paces this story is truly like next level storytelling craft. Like from a craft perspective, this is a fantastically paced story. The first book in the series is primarily following 3 characters. One is an escaped slave joining the Bloodsworn, which is a mercenary band. Then we have a daughter of a Jarl who doesn't want to marry a man. She just wants to like make a name for herself, and so she joins a different mercenary band. And then we're following Mommy Orca, one of my favorite characters of all time, who is on a quest for revenge and on a quest to rescue her kidnapped son. And this is fabulous. I love this series so deeply, and it's kind of a Viking / Norse mythology inspired tale, and I think this is excellent. And the final book I have to talk about is the final 5-star I gave in 2025 is Wind in Truth by Brennan Sanderson, which is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archives series, which ends the first arc. There's 10 books total, 2 5-book arcs. This was excellent. I'm actually losing my voice again. So I will just say I loved this installment. It broke me, remade me, put me back together, broke me again, rinse and repeat. And I have a whole vlog up discussing my love for this story, and you can see all my kind of progress reactions as I read this story. So I highly recommend you check out that vlog. This was fabulous. It was a great way to end my year. I think that's it. I think that was the list. Those are the books I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. In the comments, I will list all of my honorable mentions as well. So you have even more excellent recommendations if you so choose to take any of these books as recommendations. Let me know if you're excited to read any of these or if any of these books are your favorites. Leave it all in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video of mine very soon. Bye!